in to the Phoenix Downbeat. I'm Drew Kreisman. My brother's name is Ira Kreisman. We have a podcast, among many other things, called Everything is Final Fantasy. That there, well, you can't see them because you're listening to this and we haven't done video yet, but with us, I promise you, is Ryan Laney of Airship Overdrive.
I am here.
Right? See? Proof. And check out Airship Overdrive on YouTube, especially, because that's where you can hear all the fantastic musics. I always love it when you put together a new little short that pops up into my YouTube feed. I know you've been enjoying the Octopath lately. Lots of great music that I haven't played those games, but I'm learning the music through you, which is fun.
Yeah, as of time of recording, Octopath Zero came out a few weeks ago. My wife and I are both playing separately on our separate Switches, which is literally the reason we bought two Switches was when Octopath 2 came out. We knew we couldn't share one for our separate files. And so Octopath Zero, it's got some really good music, even though a lot of it is carried over from Octopath Traveler 1. It's kind of like a prequel-ish sort of story to 1, so they reused some of the town themes and whatnot. But there's also some new stuff. And just the music that's in that game is just fantastic.
So on today's show, we decided it was well past time that we talk about a little more Final Fantasy IV music. Going over some notes, found I'd only really discussed one track from that OST, and that's wild because it's so good. That's also proof of how much good music there is in the rest of the franchise, but had to get into this. So today, fellas, we talk about love, but also hate. Dichotomies, two sides of the coin, maybe going from Dark Knight to Paladin.
Something like that.
Themes. Also just two incredible all-time pieces of music from Nobuo Uematsu.
What are those pieces we're going to listen to today?
The theme of love. And the battle with the Four Fiends, which I have seen some people call four elemental lords and more comment. Stop it.
Yeah, I've seen that one, and I've also seen that apparently the original translation was something like the Dreadful Battle. I've also seen that version, but I think most places these days in English call it the Battle with the Four Fiends or the Four Fiends, something like that.
Yeah. A truly twisted and messed up piece of music that I want to get to on a very granular level, which is going to be fun in just a minute. Also a very loud piece of music, which is going to be fun. But first, we must begin in the quiet, soft romance theme. Ira, romance in my Final Fantasy.
A little bit.
Ira, what's your take on that song?
I think it's worth remembering what happened first. Our hero, heavy air quotes, has just come back from a mission where he was ordered by his king/father figure to invade a neighboring country, city-state, and steal their source of power, their crystal. And for the reason that we know better what to do with it, and you can't have too much power. We are the ones who be trusted. You shifty mages, we don't know what you're up to. And Cecil is feeling conflicted. And as we all know, we learned 80 years ago that just following orders is not a good enough reason to attack to invade a country and to perpetrate all sorts of atrocities. So he's not feeling good about it, right? Yeah, it's important. And so he's kind of brooding in his room, and Rosa shows up, and we get this theme, and it helps to set the stage of kind of like with Final Fantasy Tactics. It sets the stage of we're on the side of the oppressors, and we have to learn how not to do that. And it's going to be through the power of love. And I know that sounds corny, but I love it. That we're going to learn how to do that. Love for our friends, love for
friends we made along the way too.
Yes, the friends we made along the way.
Huey Lewis and the News.
The power of friendship and love defeating evil and hate.
Yeah.
You sure you got the right series? All right.
I love it so much. And it's just a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. And as I've said at least once or twice on the podcast before, if I was ever in charge of making my own music theory textbook or my own music history analysis thing, I would guaranteedly put Uematsu along with Koji Kondo, David Wise, Soyo Ono, a lot of those people that have written, the pantheon of music in video games, early history for this kind of stuff in that book. And believe it or not, did you guys know that this song, Theme of Love, is in the official Japanese state curriculum for 6th grade music?
I had heard something like that, and we mentioned, I couldn't confirm it exactly right, or so it's good to hear you say that, because I think I said that on an episode once, and I was like, I'm not 100% that's true. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. So I'm glad you're confirming it here, because that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like back in 04 or 05, it was added to their curriculum. And I don't know how many other video game songs are part of that official, allowed curriculum and whatnot. But out in Japan, they take video game music like on a whole different level than what we even do here in America. It is very much like a point of like nationalistic pride to be like, yeah, we're the ones that started the whole JRPG thing. We're the ones that birthed the Mario theme and the Final Fantasy music, all these kinds of things. A lot of just like video games in general came from Japan. And so even though here in America, and I'm sure parts of Europe and other parts of the world and whatnot, you'll hear people talk about video game music in very high esteem, it's a different level of esteem out in Japan in broad strokes. I've never really visited Japan. I've never really been in the culture. I don't know if either of you can speak more to that, but it's like a serious thing out there.
Well, one thing I do know, again, I not to be too much of a tourist, so I can only say from one big example that we saw of it not too long ago was during the Olympics, whatever year that was, I forget.
That's right. Yeah. Was it 08 was Beijing. When was it Nagano, 10 or something?
It was more recent because I think it was during the pandemic when a lot of stuff was shut down.
That's right.
But there were people coming out. They were playing Mario, Zelda, Final Fantasy, and Chrono Trigger, little frogs theme for you during the Olympics. So yeah, they without speaking too broadly or too culturally insensitively, I hope, I think it's fair to say that yeah, Japan takes video game music much more seriously in a good way, earnestly, treats it as legitimate as any other form of music making, where still in the United States it's maybe looked at as, we've even talked about this when we talk about Studio Ghibli movies. People feel this way about animation in general. Cartoons are for kids. It's like, no, and Japan's not that way about that either. They very much so.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up the Olympics, because I can recall in high school playing many a theme by John Williams, but never would have played a video game theme. You were a band director. Did you ever have your students play John Williams and or video game music?
Yes and yes. So funny enough, for the listeners, yes, for about a decade, I was a band director. I taught 5th through 12th grade band in public schools. And we did play a good number of John Williams things because everyone knows John Williams. You've all heard Star Wars. You've all heard Indiana Jones, all those kinds of things. And as far as video game music, we did, I know on my students' little short song sheets that were little 8-16 measure long melodies, I would make one every year updated that was here's one that's video game and movie themes. Here's one that's folk song themes, just real simple stuff we could sight read and also do some fun activities with and whatnot. And as far as like the video game themes, that's where we got most of them. But I know that there was at least one instance where I did a full arrangement of the Tetris theme, which you can argue is not actually a video game theme. It's Korobeniki. It's an old, kind of Russian song. But we also did this big band festival that I would arrange the music for every year. You'd get all the 6th through 12th graders together, and they would play a concert together on the same stage. And there was like 300 students were involved. It was massive to do every year. And there was like every year we would try to like theme it around something. And there was one year we did at my behest, because I did all the music for it. We did a video game themed show. And I know it had Terra's theme. I think was the only Final Fantasy one we did. We did Metal Gear Solid theme. We did something from Zelda. I can't remember which Zelda song it was. And then 2 or 3 other shorter songs from video games.
You're a
so
cool band director.
I tried to be. So the short answer is yes, I did both John Williams and movie music in general. I know we did some Lord of the Rings stuff as well, which is not John Williams, and video games, because it's good music. It's still worthy of performing, whether it's in band, whether it's listening to it, whatever have you.
And theme of love, it really is one of those things. It reminds me a lot of, we talked about Elia, Maiden of Water, sort of an undeniably beautiful theme, even if in some ways it's kind of simple, and maybe you'll show us some ways it's doing some clever things. But
I'm waiting in the wings. I'm ready.
I'm so excited, because this is one that I can't separate it from. I've heard it maybe a million times. I don't know. I wasn't counting. So many times over so many years. And I have a hard time trying to listen to it as a technical piece of music, because it puts me back there. And some of the other, setting things Ira didn't mention, it's a nighttime scene under the moonlight, which I think is an important one for moon stuff. It's in Final Fantasy IV. But also it's a theme that Final Fantasy would come back to for its romances a lot. Promises made to characters, or between characters to each other, under the stars, under the moonlight. It happens obviously with Tifa and Cloud in Final Fantasy VII. It happened most recently with Clive and Jill in Final Fantasy XVI. This particular scene where the moonlight and the early brooding of typically the male character and the female character, grounding him in a bit of reality and giving him and it is almost always that way, which can be an unfortunate trope, but giving that lead male character a personal fight to have, and not just saving the world. There's also a human being that they care very deeply for.
Yeah, and I think that this is, to tangent real quick, this is, I think, best seen, even if it might not have been done the best, in Final Fantasy VIII, they leaned on this very hard, to the point where even the game's logo is literally Squall embracing Renoa. And it's from a very specific cutscene in the game that happens on disc 3 that exact shot is taken from. And of course, the whole first 2.5 discs, he's brooding, whatever, oh, go away, I don't care, talk to a wall. Like, he's kind of a jerk, to be honest. And then Renoa kind of pulls out this, hey, you can open up, you can love someone. And then the whole thing with the sorceresses and the wars and all these things happen. But you're getting into the exact thing that I was kind of like hoping we would get into, which is that concept of, for a song to be a theme of love. Well, just to put it quite simply, what does a love song have to then relate to?
Would have to relate to love, but to not be tautological. Being able to express one's feelings, which in this scene one person can and the other person cannot. Being able to show some vulnerability. Again, Rosa's got that covered, and Cecil is wearing armor and a full helmet in bed. It needs to be a little gentler. It needs to be a little slower. And I think you'll get into technical terms.
Yeah. And to pull the lens back even farther, a theme of love has to have 2 components to it for something to love, because of the nature of it being a verb to love something else or someone else. there have to be two aspects to this, right? Two sides of the story, two elements here. And so in the theme of love, we're going to walk through it here a little bit, kind of bar by bar, just to look at what they're doing and explain. I'm going to ask you guys a little bit about why this song just evokes the kind of love that Rosa and Cecil share, right? So right off the bat, we get these 4 notes in our melody. And if you were to hear that all by itself, how would you describe those 4 notes in that sequence?
Well, it's a falling. Remember, it's what did I say before? The folly downies. You're right. It's got that descending line without the 2 notes that go up. It sounds very down, very sad.
Yeah, it sounds kind of morose, doesn't it? It just sounds like there's something like not great happening. And if you play, like, this is a great way I like to analyze like chunks of melodies, is that if you play all the notes at the exact same time, what does that sound like? And if you play those 4 notes together, yeah, it's kind of harsh, right? By comparison, if I played the first few notes of the Mario theme at the same time, I get a perfect triad. Play it again. There we go. And so there's something weird going on here, and then you keep going to those high notes. And what does that immediately make you feel?
A little bit better, maybe a little bit more hopeful. If the first part is Cecil feeling down on himself, maybe the second part is Rosa trying to build him up a little bit.
Drew?
Yeah, it's literally loftier, right? It lifts you up a bit. It makes you think, I'm down, but maybe not. I'm down, but maybe not.
What's interesting too is that this interval here, this is a major 7th interval, and I can guarantee everyone has heard a song that uses this interval very prominently in the chorus. Can either of you think of what that might be?
Can you do it again?
And if I put it in a different key, it might resonate a little more. Or in this one. Take on me.
On me.
Yeah, it's the take on me, take me on melody. And this is, which is also similarly a pseudo love song, not in the same sense like this one is, but it's still about like that longing, right? And that interval right there is so key to this because it's not quite a perfect octave and it's not quite a perfect 6th, which you can fit into an inverted chord, like a simple triad, pretty easily. Instead, it's this middle ground. And you would expect this to resolve either continuing to go up like Take On Me does, or resolve down right away. But instead, what does it do?
Say no. It leaves you there.
Yeah, it just holds. And when you put that into the context of the chord underneath it, which is simply a D minor 9 chord. Man. Yeah, I saw Drew, he unmuted, as soon as I played that little thing, he unmuted and was just like, whoa, what is that?
Why is that? What is that? That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's this sense here that they set up right from the beginning that I'm going to call a sense of longing. And in the game, and Ira kind of talked about it already, there's always this sense of like Rosa trying to show her love for Cecil, but Cecil's frequently just kind of like resisting it is the simplest way I think to describe it right now. And they never quite, are a couple for a long, long time in the game until, spoilers, at the very, very end, they do eventually kind of like properly join in union. We'll say it that way. And but until then, it's very much just like this constant, like, pull, not even like a push. Well, I guess there's a push and pull, a push from Cecil. There's a lot of this pull. And the structure of that part right there, here's what it would sound like if it was either up to the perfect octave, and then if it was down to just a 6th, and you'll see how they sound different. So here's the first 2 bars, the way it's written like normal. Here's if we go completely up to the octave. And then here's if we don't quite go up to the 7, we go to 6 instead. And how do those other two, how do they sound different compared to the original version?
I don't know. That's hard to pinpoint exactly why. I felt when you played the first one, it once again put me in mind of kind of loungy. We talked about airport or sort of music. Just as like, oh, okay, that's sure, you could fiddle around on those chords exactly that way. Mm-hmm. Maybe the second one has a similar thing going on. Ira and I sometimes in storytelling, I feel like we're a lot better at recognizing it, but we talk about intentionality, right? Intentionally making a choice. We talk about that with the orphanage scene of Final Fantasy VIII. Everybody hates. We say, hate it or not, this is an intentional choice that they made, and we're going to approach it as such, right? So I feel like the actual melody feels intentioned.
And I'm going to do some wordplay here. What other word is right in the middle of intentional?
10?
Keep going.
Attention.
Oh, yeah. If you keep it the way that it's written normally, where it goes up to basically to the note E is what we're going up to. This is what rounds out our D minor 9 chord. And a D minor 9, if I play it all just in root position, it's one of those loungy sort of chords that just sounds like, oh, it's not really going anywhere, not really resolved. It's just sort of this like middling tension, basically. Not the tension of like a dominant 7 chord, something like that. But it still has this tension to it when that 9 is way up, like 2 octaves above. And you can tell there's a sense of longing. We go to the very next measure, and on the downbeat, something weird happens. And I'm gonna point it out here. So here's the first 2 bars plus 1 beat. What happened in the melody?
Well, the melody, there was a chord change, but the melody just didn't. There was none. There big empty space. There
wasn't anything. And the whole A section of this song is this repeated pattern of here's some notes, pause, da 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 da, then some other notes, pause, da 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 da. But the melody that follows in, it generally matches the chord that was kind of setting it up. So if we just keep going a little ways farther, we go to a G7 chord. And then the next melody starts on the note D, which is a diatonic tone to the chord G7. Then we go to a nice E minor 7. And then it's going to happen again. Nothing in the melody. And that C that we started off on there, that's a diatonic note to A. So let me ask you guys, knowing, again, what music theory you guys do know and kind of what I've explained here, how do you think that might set up the relationship between Rosa and Cecil, where we have a chord starting each other measure, and then the melody kind of waits for it and follows in line a beat later? How does that relate?
Yeah, I can see it a couple ways. I don't want to put any one role on either of them all of the time, but one of them could start the conversation and the other not participate, like is happening in that first scene. I think Rose is doing most of the talking, and Cecil just can't bring himself to say much. It could be an attempt to come together, but like you said, they don't really manage it until near the end. I like to think of it as a sort of a broken conversation or a lot left unsaid.
Ooh, Ira's setting up some great 2-pointers here. Drew, what do you got?
I will only add one phrase that we hear a lot in film, but probably more in television. It's got a bit of will they, won't they?
Yes, like both of those things spot on. And basically it's going to set it up so that the first about 2/3 of this song before it starts to loop, it has that same structure where I would call it almost a following sort of like conversation here, where Cecil's doing something, he's the chord background, and Rosa is sort of the person following him and trying to show him what to do, but ultimately she's just still following him. They're not really walking together, so to say. A lot of it is Cecil's kind of running the show, Rosa is there supporting him in various ways, and at some points in the story, Cecil's even like just straight up verbatim saying, no, leave me, don't follow me on this endeavor, but Rosa's still there. And I think this little interplay between the chords and the melody set that up so well, because it's literally, here are the chords, here's where a melody should go, oh, but it's always one step behind. It's the Rosa following the Cecil. And if I play just the first few bars, listen to it from that perspective, where the left hand is Cecil just kind of doing his own thing, and the right hand is Rosa kind of following him. And finally, right there, we actually get a mini phrase, a little 2-bar phrase, where they actually both change on a fairly tense dominant chord, an A7 chord. So it's like those little moments where Cecil kind of acquiesces and he goes, okay, Rosa, fine, you can join along. Or, okay, Rosa, I'll admit my feelings for you in some small way. But then we get to the next phrase, and it's the exact same thing of the da-da-da, pause, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it keeps going that way throughout. But they sneak in a little thing the second time through that we hear this, where we get this really nice crunchy chord right about here. Right about here. And that chord there, it's like, it's the big giant red flag. It's the guys with the semaphore, the bright orange pylons or something for like the airplanes coming in. They're going, hey, something different is coming up. Because when we've been hearing just this the whole time, and then we out of the blue just hear a fully diminished 7 chord. Whoa, something else is coming up. What would you suspect is coming up?
Well, keeping with the theme of love, these two really, aside from his bit of misogyny at the end there, where he tries to protect the ladies and tell them they can't come along, he really does have a good turnaround, where not only the feeling bad for committing heinous crimes in the name of his king, but also it's important and okay to rely on the people around him, including Rosa. And if I can get a little Cain in there also. Cain, I don't think Cain's necessarily a part of this theme, but he's got it bad for Rosa. And I think there's a way to read it where he's got it pretty bad for Cecil too. But I think seeing Cecil's character arc come to where he can not only become the paladin, but become the paladin who embraces his new family, I think is really important.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go even one step farther when I put Drew on the spot here. But what would you suspect? And it's what does happen in the credits. What's the ultimate, the final, I guess, detail of Rosa and Cecil's love? What happens at the very, very end, if you recall?
Well, he just put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember. What is the final? It has been a minute since I've played 4. I didn't know there was going to be a pop quiz today.
I'll tell you. So if I recall correctly, they get married in the credits. And then something in the after years, sure, they kind of allude to this and whatnot. But they do end up actually getting married and being a proper couple. And so now, after all this back and forth, this longing, this following we've seen in the first parts of this song, we do finally get to the end where the last 8-bar phrase, everything is together, where there's all the melodies are happening on the downbeat with the chord changes. And believe it or not, we also hear, for the only time in the whole melody, we hear an F sharp instead of F naturals, which I would like to think kind of relates to the whole lightening up. We're going up ever so slightly. It's not like a super ingrained, you must do this in music theory to make it sound happier sort of thing, but it works. We've also got the transition from hearing everything based in D minor or some D minor extension where it's all down there, and now it starts off in F major 7. If I make that even stronger on the bottom section. And we get, instead of the sad happy chord, we get the happy sad chord, like we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
It's based in a major harmony instead. So when we hear this section here, and it actually sounds very uplifting, very joyous, until, of course, Uematsu lets to do his weird turnarounds. And so at the very end, we get this somewhat unusual one.
Yeah.
And then it repeats. He loves doing that, where he just throws these weird borrowed chords. There was a Picardy third in there, which is a weird music theory term that I won't get into right now. There's a very intense half diminished 7 also, all to get us back to the beginning, because he has to loop it. It's a video game. Deal with it. It's going to require looped music. But I just love how he takes this concept of, like, there's one person following the other the whole 2/3 of the song, and then finally at the very end, they're actually together and they're actually happy. Yet again, he knew the story of the game before he wrote the music for it.
Genius. Maybe not that part, but the other stuff you said. It really is. And I'm so glad you were able to break all that down for me. It's exactly what I was hoping for in terms of how come so pretty. Well, that's how come, because of all the stuff you just said. But yeah, that really is. It's such a beautiful melody, and the way it all comes together, it's super satisfying. I've often thought of that, and in fact, in the Distant Worlds version, that section, they add a little more, and I really think it hammers home that Joe Hisaishi's Studio Ghibli vibe of being hyper soaring and joyous and just overwhelmingly romantic, like you're walking on the air. And I love that section so much.
Yeah, that part of the Distant Worlds version, which I suspect we're going to hear here in a second based on what Drew's got pulled up, they do a fantastic job of making those earlier parts feel very, like, sparse, isolated, lonely almost. And then the big pickup scene, plus a little bit of an interlude they kind of add in the middle there, is just gorgeously flowing, soaring, uplifting, all the things you want to, put in there, while still retaining some of the kind of, like, I guess, tension or heartache from the first parts.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's just, yeah, it's lovely. But what more can you say about it?
I don't have Howl's Moving Castle pulled up today, but that was the piece I thought of when it really started going into its elaborations. That this is just, I could listen to this.
Sorry.
This guy.
I could listen to that all day.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle is another good correlation with between, like, is it Sophie is the girl's name, I believe? Between Sophie and Hal is like a weird kind of kindred spirits love story that includes time travel, weirdly enough.
Kind of, yeah.
I've been meaning to read the book for a while because it's based on a short story, or maybe like a more novel length book, but I've been meaning to read it for a long time.
I didn't even know there was a book, but I love that movie. It's something. All those movies are pretty incredible. There is one other version of it that I wanted us to listen to, another kind of elaboration, a different way of doing it. We talked about some of the Elia stuff. We didn't love the particular thing they added in the DS version until John Oath did it on harmonics, and then we liked it. But this piece, it seems you can elaborate on and do all kinds of beautiful things with and not miss. Everyone seems to be doing great out here. I've mentioned the Celtic Moon album before, so won't do too much other preamble other than to say I'm going to jump us past, it takes the melody we've heard this whole time, puts it on Celtic instruments for the first about minute 45, goes through the melody as we've heard it, and then it starts to elaborate. So I'm going to drop us in right there.
Oh, that part was so good. It was like a little two-part going on.
Yeah, the two. It's so good. That album's so good.
That style of like that Celtic, and it's also a very like Baroque thing. If you listen to some good like Scarlatti or Bach style keyboard pieces, that little ornamentation where like you can't just play like you can't just play it that way. You got to play a little like. I love that kind of stuff. And it's not easy to play. Like, props to anyone who is like a flute player of some kind, a keyboard player, bagpipe player particularly. That stuff is not easy to do.
And it's real pretty. Every time I hear it, I go, ooh.
Yeah, it's real pretty when someone knows what they're doing. If you're like me and you're struggling with your hammer-ons and pull-offs lately on guitar, it sounds not as good.
Less pleasing.
But it does sound good.
Headphone warning. Now I know what you're thinking. The song is longer than that.
Yeah. What gives? What gives?
Ryan, we have to start with this, and I promise we'll listen to it cohesively, but We got to break it down. I mentioned earlier we got to get granular. That was 7 seconds. But that is just a little phrase that we're not going to hear again for a while, and I don't want us to forget about it a minute and a half later after 12 other ridiculous things have happened. So I will begin and probably ask this 8 more times. Was that?
So for the listener, we are now fully into the battle with the Four Fiends, or Dreadful Battle, or whatever other version you find it online as. This is the intro. And like Drew just said, this is the only part that we don't hear except for the intro. It's only about 5 bars total. And it sounds, to put it lightly, it sounds intense, doesn't it? And a couple things, of course, lend itself toward that. Not only is it very intense as far as its tempo, it's also very intense as far as the instrumentation, where we hear these brass and cymbal crash to start, but also in terms of just the note choices, where basically throughout the entirety of this song, we're roughly based in A minor, but I put a gigantic asterisk on A minor because we're going to do a lot of stuff that kind of pushes and pulls with some very non-diatonic, some very accidental, and some very chromatic senses of what's happening here. So the very first thing we hear in Battle with the Four Fiends, as far as like what's prominent, is this odd melody that I'll play a little more slowly. And that's just weird, right? Like, why does that sound so odd?
I don't know. At times it's a Castlevania piece. At times I don't know. It's just a bunch of it's rising the whole time seems to be the only thing it's consistently doing.
It's not a falling down, but it does fall down a little bit. It goes up and down.
A little bit. And to put it in the simplest terms, Drew actually wins the point this time for pretty much nailing it on what we're hearing. It sounds like Castlevania. Castlevania, I was kind of leading to earlier with the Baroque mention. It's based on Baroque organ music, plus other styles, just like general keyboard music in general, that's based in a minor key. And in this scenario here, it's based in the same kind of harmonic context that you would typically get from something like Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, this whole piece. And it uses a very, very similar structure. And so for the most part, in this whole section here, the only accidentals we hear are going to be our sharp 7, which basically is like a tension to get us back from some dominant chord back to our 1, our tonic, back to our home bass, so to say. And then we also hear a flat 5, or E flat in this case sometimes, which almost always goes back up to E. So if we're in A minor, we're basically playing this scale, quote unquote. It's parsed out and it's junked apart a little bit, but we're basically hearing this scale in this setting.
Cool.
And that's literally just like some of the most iconic, most standard notes you would hear in a Baroque minor setting keyboard piece. So right off the bat, it's going, hey, we want you to have this sense of like Gothic horror almost coming from what we're going to hear in this thing coming up here, because you don't typically hear these kinds of harmonies and this kind of like, sharp 7 to 1 and sharp 4 or flat 5 to 5 voice leading. You don't hear that a lot in music outside of the kind of Baroque through late Romantic era. After Romantic era, it gets really wonky with how they handle tension and harmony. But that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Castlevania, and that's exactly why. And below that, all we basically have is just these big booming octaves of just like octave A's, something like that. And so you combine it all together and you get this really intense, like, whoa, Gothic horror, very strong and clearly rooted in one key, even though we're ending on, which is just simply, it's a tension, a dominant chord that gets us back to A pretty soon.
It's funny because until you slowed it down for me, I'd actually never made the connection to Castlevania before. It was doing all of that in my brain without me knowing it, which is pretty amazing. All right, let's listen to literally the next 7 seconds.
Okay, so before we get too much farther into this one, we've now heard something completely different, right?
Yeah.
We're still in the key of A, still the same setting, but as far as melody and structure and rhythm, it's completely different. Before I say how I see this view or how I see this song kind of put together, do either of you have any 2-cent thoughts before we really get into it?
Yeah, this is your, what was the event you did all the time, Drew, in speech and debate? Extemporaneous.
Extemporaneous.
Yeah. This is a 5-paragraph essay in a way. It is, here's a piece that I'm going to talk about. Here's a piece I'm going to talk about. Here's another piece I'm going to talk about. And then eventually it's all going to come together and blow your mind.
Drew, your thoughts?
Cool. I like that. I've honestly always struggled with the structure of this piece as somebody who's, I know pop structure. So as you got A, B, A, B, C, B, B. Hooray. We made a pop song, and this is just so decidedly not that.
Good job too. That is like the pop song formula. It's A B A B C B B to fade. That's like literally, and then maybe they throw a D in there or something. But that literally is like the pop song formula, right?
Right.
So here's my 2 cents. Is that this song is about how many specific characters?
Oh, damn it. It's funny, like as you started the sentence, I was like, oh, this is going to be representative of the Four Fiends, isn't it?
Yeah, my take is that this is based on essentially if you were to have each of the Four Fiends with their own, I wouldn't call it leitmotif, but their own little like part of this song, I can break it down roughly into 4 distinct melodies that only have a little bit of overlap between the two. This is the first kind of like theme, quote unquote. I don't know if you can even really call it that. Let's say it goes for what's one of their names, Scarmigliani or something. It's their theme, let's just say. And we have this very staccato, very punctuated bump, 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 and then it even kind of continues. So it's like one of them is perhaps someone very pointy. Their attacks are very sharp. They have something that has to do with poking or prodding or slashing in some way because the music sounds like points and little like pokes and jabs, right? So every time that we hear something that's very, very short with lots of rests in between, that represents one of the Four Fiends in my eyes. And this is like basically just that theme. It's very, very short. This particular one is very, very short among the other ones, but we do hear it come back in a little bit of a different flavor at other times.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned pokey and stabby because without thinking of it in terms of these particular characters, I'd always thought of this phrase, that bum, 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 as the part where someone says, "Have at you, sir, and on guard."
Yeah, it's right. It sounds like swords, clang, clang, cling, clang. Also, to get my prog rock sensibilities out there, this is like a cool mixed meter 4+3 or 7/4 time thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we're in 3/4. Uematsu at this time, he really started to show his love of bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Deep Purple. These bands that were like what they wouldn't have called necessarily prog rock back then. They were called psychedelic rock back then, most likely. Yeah. But he really dug that stuff. And the keyboard players for both of those bands were big influences on him. So now we hear the first proper time where instead of it being, Battle at the Big Bridge from 5 or the Seymour Battle from 10, this is the first time I would say that we really hear a proper like prog rock, quote unquote, song from Uematsu. And he just ripped it. It's so good.
Oh, it's so good. Let's listen to the next section, which is a little bit longer.
Good timing. So what did we hear there?
Well, the melody got much more flowy and connected, less staccato, right? We had more of that. Yeah, as opposed to ta-ta-tas.
Ira, is that what you would call it?
I'm not sure those are the words I would use.
Sure. Writer or real-time editor.
I really like the bit there at the end with the umpapa, umpapa, umpapa. I think that's a part that really sticks out to me.
And here's the thing. Why do you think that part in particular might be sticking out to your ear?
It's a different time, different numbers on the left there.
Different numbers on the lift?
On the left, the time signature.
On the
Sorry.
lift, like on a ski lift or something. So here's the weird thing. Just literally like seconds ago, we heard da 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 da, which is in quarter notes. Rest, note, note, rest, note, note. But now we hear it in eighth notes. Rest, note, note, rest, note, note, rest, note, note. This is what you'd call rhythmic diminution, where something you've heard before comes back, but everything is half as long. The other way is rhythmic augmentation, where you might hear, like if it was from quarter notes to half notes, it would go bum, bum, ba, dum, dun, da, which, spoiler alert, we do kind of hear at the very end of the loop. So already he's done a little callback to remind us, oh, these themes are somewhat connected, even if you don't actually think about it that way. But he's also got this really nice, more floaty melody, like Drew put it. Da 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 da. And perhaps there's one of the Four Fiends that's more ethereal, more floaty. One of them flies, perhaps.
That's gotta be
it's still based in A minor. We still got this whole thing going. But it's just not as punctuated. It's not as in your face, right? And they just keep doing that. Eventually they'll have it so that's harmonized in thirds. But it still sounds intense. We're still in some sort of minor setting, whether it's A minor, we go to E minor a little bit, and it keeps on going from there. But yet again, it sounds like a different person has entered the arena, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I agree with Ira. There's always been something it feels like it interrupts the song. There's another phrase that's going to come in a minute that feels like it interrupts the song. And it's so satisfying. It's so good.
And interruption, I think, for a song about a fight makes a lot of sense. To contrast with the one we just talked about, the previous song, right? That's a song about coming together. This is a song about interrupting each other.
Mm-hmm. Which, tangent, if anyone listening wants to get a great example of music that's basically scored to a fight scene, check out the first Pirates of the Caribbean, the scene where it's Jack and Will kind of like having a sword battle in this like donkey hut barn type thing. Yeah, it's something like that. The music actually follows the action really, really well. Check that out sometime and watch for that scene of how the music actually matches what's happening.
Right on. Always down to listen to some Pirates music. But let's do the next section of Battling with the Four Fiends.
So that right there, I'd argue, is the third Fiends theme. This part where we hear all of this going on. Ba-da-da-da. Because this also sounds very floaty, but we're now using a melody that is way crunchier. The one we just listened to a minute ago, it was all diatonic, believe it or not. That, like, all that stuff, it's all within one key. But now we suddenly start getting rooted in the key of A minor, and we start getting these random B flats in there. And it's just like, whoa, suddenly something else is going on here. This I would almost credit to one of the Four Fiends being very like, they want to torture you. It's not as intense. It's not as like punctuated with swords. It's almost like there's a vice grip on you that's slowly being turned until that very last da 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 da, and that's like the bones breaking on someone, right? And yet it still is relaxed, question mark, like compared to the other stuff going on around it.
It's funny, as you were playing it made me think of the scene in the Lord of the Rings when they're making the Uruk-hai and they're coming down there through the mountain and showing you all the working and all of that stuff. And I think this is the earth. It's got to be Earth theme. It's death and inside the earth and all of that. It's funny that you had such a cool analogy for bone breaking at the end, because that phrase, which I was alluding to a moment ago, I've always thought of as like the Kool-Aid Man. Crashing into the song going, hey, now I'm here.
and this little part, it's actually kind of to spoil a theme from 3 games from now in the mainline series. But does that little part there, does that sound familiar at all to you two?
Mm-hmm. That was sort of sorcerousy. Was it
kinda?
No? Okay. I forgot how many games you said, so it just sounded sorcerousy.
Sorceress theme. Sorry, I heard sorcery theme. Oh. Yes, it does kind of sound like, let's see if I can remember how it goes, top of my head.
Yeah.
It does kind of sound like that a little bit, but there's something very particular about these like 4 chords.
Is it Sephiroth?
Yeah! Ira gets the point this time. If we transpose this to the key of D, he's doing that same thing where he's rooting it over a minor chord, but that top note, the 5th of the chord, is kind of jumping around between the 5th, the sharp 4, and the flat 6. So if we hear this like the Sephiroth theme, the bottom 2 notes, the D and the F, they stay there the whole time. Except for right there, the D actually does go to a C sharp. But in broad strokes, they stay the same. And here we hear the exact same thing in A minor, just slightly tweaked. It's that same root. And you'll see that between games 4 and 8, Uematsu likes to throw this little bit in there for like that extra juicy tension, because we're kind of in, A minor, D minor, but he wants us to not feel too resolved. We don't want to feel too relaxed at any point, given what's going on in context.
And in the next bit, our digital trumpet player gets to have a workout.
Yes. And this is what I would argue is the 4th theme coming up here. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that little melody?
I love that so much. First of all, it's got to be fire. Now that I'm looking at it through the lens you've provided, that's definitely fire. I love part of the reason why, the 2 main things that I've always loved about this bit. It has an unpredictability where it's melody the first time you're expecting it to hit twice in resolution and it doesn't, but then the second time it plays that, it does. It finally gives it to you, which is really nice. And then it does another one of my favorite tricks that he pulls off that we talked about with the floating continent, where his descending folly downy melody continues to descend and fall down the stairs a little bit longer than you're expecting it to, or you want it to. It doesn't resolve gently. It just keeps going. And I feel like those are all indicative of the chaos of fire.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple things here where you could pull some story elements from how there's like a lot of phrases that feel like they should have gone like 1 bar longer, or it feels like they should have ended, but then something either jumps in and keeps it going. In this case, it's like you would expect one more measure of something in the da 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 da, and you'd think maybe one more bar goes in because 4-bar phrases are very frequent, but then suddenly it goes back to the beginning but harmonized. Bum 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 bum. And I don't know if it's like something intentional he did about Four Fiends, where he made it so that a lot of these phrases are 3 bars and then like a trick on the 4th one. Maybe there's something there. I'm not going to try to like place it per se, but this part, the folly downy you're talking about, is another really clever bit where it's like this moment of tension, this moment of despair, something happening where it's literally just a bunch of diminished chords just stepping down the scale. Right? And it's just falling, falling, falling. If you were to break those out to be just in block chords, all you'd hear is just. It's just literally diminished chords with no functional harmony. And whenever you have harmony that does not function, to our ears, that means chaos, where you're expecting something to go, or you're expecting the music to kind of like work with you. When it's not doing that, something's not right. And that's why it makes for really good, intense fight music, because it's not giving you those moments of, oh yeah, this should go here, right? Nope, it's constantly unpredictable.
And then, Ira, what is the objectively best part of this song? Because I know you're into objectively best when it comes to the arts.
This is why I don't like you very much.
I do. No, but seriously, I love so much the way after all that noise, all those changes, everything that we just discussed, everything goes away except the little hi-hat that goes
pretty good.
And it reminds me of, we've been on a big Ninja Turtles kick, me and Kiddo, and it reminds me of like when they're getting their ass kicked in the first part of the fight, and then they all have to take a quick breather and go, okay, let's get back in there.
Also, notice how at the end of this little phrase here, we had another little hint of the note, rest, note, rest, note. It changes it by one beat just to make it line up with the meter correctly. But yet again, we have that 3/4 interposed with rhythmic diminution applied to at the end of this section. And now at the very end of all of this, I suspect we're going to hear something else that relates to something we've heard before. And then it loops. But what did we hear right there before the loop came back?
Like a big heroic melody.
Ira, what would you say we heard there?
I'd have to hear it again. Drew. Yeah, that didn't help.
So those notes right there, if I play them just by themselves with none of the other stuff behind them, what does that sound like? And I'll give you a hint.
The Sephiroth again?
It's the Sephiroth melody. It's even though it starts on the flat 6 this time, not on the 5 like we usually hear it, he's still playing around back and forth on the notes around your 5 in the minor key. So if we're in A minor, we're going to hear a lot of F, E, and D sharp back and forth. And then he kind of sneaks in a 7 there just for the sake of having the melody sound slightly different. But this is essentially just pulled one for one from the thing we heard earlier. It's just, yet again, drawn out. Now we actually have, like I hinted to earlier, the rhythmic augmentation where we have this part and it's now in half notes instead. Plus all the other cool bass line stuff going on underneath it.
You know, according to the thirstiest people on the internet, Sephiroth is a hero. So I'm saying that is a heroic theme.
Hey, you can argue that way. You can argue easily that Sephiroth and Seymour and all of them, they've all got it right. There is a legit like argument to be put to paper that is, in my eyes, somewhat well argued, but loses a lot of other like just stuff along the way. But yeah, you could argue, hey, Sephiroth, whether it's not heroic, it could still be a sense of like power or, you know, kind of motion happening.
All right. Now we have two very different alternative versions of this piece to listen to. The very different takes on it, but that still preserve almost all of the things that we talked about, sometimes just adding bits here and there. So start quiet and then go loud.
And I'll actually say, because I'm going to throw one more at us. We actually have 3 we're going to listen to.
Oh, right. That one might get demonetized, but we should do that anyway.
Oh, is it the Forged in Crimson one? Is it that one?
Oh, no. I was going to maybe do Pixel Remaster, but let's do yours then, because that might less likely to get. But in the meantime, let's start with the version from Distant Worlds 4. Man, what? Oh! Oh!
What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Tell me you can't make perfection better. I don't believe you. I just heard it. That was... So, first of all, they went all Studio Ghibli in the middle of that song for some reason, too. It gets like very majory and heroic there.
Yeah, they take some liberties with this Distant Worlds version, more so than most songs that they do rearrangements of. And I know we discussed on an older episode about like how do you take a song that might only be a 40-second loop, for example, and turn it into like a full album length song. And this is one of the examples where I think, honestly, I know Drew just said it's like perfection to him. As an arranger, I actually have a lot to say about what I don't like about this one, because they took a lot of the melodies and the structure and just dragged it out and milked it for all it was worth. By itself, it sounds beautiful, but for what I am expecting, like for what me, Ryan, what I want out of this song, I feel like they changed the tone of it so drastically that it no longer hits the point of like, it's the battle with the Four Fiends, and instead it's like, here's the overture featuring the Four Fiends, ta-da, sort of thing.
It does sound very like operatically theatrical, and I love that about it. No.
Is the tempo of this version slower? Because I feel like when you're in the battle, they're just and they keep to that, moving us right along.
I think it's slightly slower. I'd have to get a metronome to see how much, but I think it's just a little slower.
My band director was very fond of directing a piece differently each time, not necessarily every single time, but we'd learn the piece like he wanted us to watch him, right? You got to watch me. I might pause here. I might draw this quiet moment out. I might ask you to hold that note longer. Don't finish when you think it's finished. You're watching me. And I feel like this is a piece that could really do that. We talked about, I mean, you mentioned Toccata and Fugue earlier in this episode. We talked about it several episodes ago about when do you draw those notes out? When do you let a beat of silence in there? And I feel like the dynamics in this one also gets really quiet, and then the horns come in and poke you like you were talking about earlier. This seems like a piece that my old band director would have loved, because he could have messed with us on the night of the concert. We would be doing a rehearsal and be like, "You don't know how I'm going to do it tonight, so pay attention, watch me." And I tried, man, but we were in high school. We weren't all there.
On the flip side, one of the things as a former band director myself that I used to love to do, I usually just do it in class. I wouldn't do it on a concert, except for one scenario I can think of. But in class, when we were performing like a very slow piece, one that has a lot of push and pull, slow down, speed up type stuff, is we would get to the point where, like Ira just said, we kind of had rehearsed it to the point where we could play it proficiently front to back. You're no longer wood shopping it, so to say. And then we would start it, and I'd say, hey, we're going to do a full run of, on a hymn song of Philip Bliss or whatever the song was. And I'd say, here we go. And then after the first like two measures, I would just kind of like body language show them to keep going, and then I would just walk off the podium and just go to the back of the room and just let them play it, listening to each other. And some of the most musical moments I ever experienced from my students were those moments where the conductor was not in the picture, and it was them having to rely on their musical sensibilities, their sense of, oh, do I hear someone breathing in next to me to start this next phrase? Or did someone else kind of, pick up their flute in the front row, and I saw them kind of intend, oh, I'm going to start the note here, and we all kind of follow. Oh, some of the best moments of being a director right there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. You never know which of the changes, we've talked about this with the games themselves and remakes, remasters, or even just the modernization of the franchise. When things change, not everyone's going to love, the changes, and why some do or don't vibe with you can sometimes be highly subjective, and you might not even know yourself. I couldn't tell you specifically why I love all of the changes in this one so much, but didn't totally vibe with the Elia ones. There are other covers and versions of other things, or we talked about the Otherworld version of Black Mages that we're going to listen to next, that I didn't quite vibe with that one as much, where Ira still loved it. But this one, I'm so all the way in on that absolutely bananas version of the Battle with the Four Fiends.
And it does end very well. The ending of that one, I think, is just choice. It's so good.
The Black Mages, meanwhile, are much closer to the original pin, but on all of the instruments you want from the Black Mages, and with rad solos from Nobuo Uematsu and friends. Stop it, boys. Stop it.
I love it. This version I do like quite a bit. It's got that just raw, just like rock and roll type thing. And they do a good job of balancing out the parts where it's like bump, 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 and like a lot of pause in between. But then they just have that section in the middle that's just rip roaring, take some solos. We're just in straight 4/4 time, mostly just rocking. It sounds fantastic. I love that they have that kind of deep purple sounding organ when Uematsu comes in, and it's just good old rock music. I mean, what more can you say?
So you are okay with the liberties this one takes more than the other one?
That's a great question. And if I had to like sit down and write an essay on why I like this one a lot more than the Distant Worlds one, I could do it. And right off the top of my head, I would say because the way that they kind of like parse it out and they do draw some things out, which was one of my comments on the other one, is that it still has the same kind of drive always. And it doesn't feel like there's ever these moments where it's like relaxed, is probably the best way I can put it. In the Distant Worlds version, it sounds very overture style, where we have the intense and we have the almost like chill moments. But for me in this, I just want in your face nonstop, because that's what the Four Fiends would have done. And if it's going to be their song, that's what I want to hear out of it.
I also want to say, after listening to those rip-roaring solos with the organ and the guitars and everything, I'm now really embarrassed that I had never made the Castlevania connection before today. Like, it really came full circle right there. I was like, how have you never heard the Castlevania in this?
Yeah, it's literally, look up any song that's based in a harmonic minor and you're going to hear, oh, this kind of sounds like Castlevania, because they're almost entirely, the whole soundtracks are based in harmonic minor. But we have one more that I just sent you for, and this is one that comes from Final Fantasy XIV, which has a lot of, obviously, like versions and arrangements drawn from older ones. This is the only one I know of that they actually provided lyrics for. It's Rubicant's theme in 14. The version is called Forged in Crimson, and I'll say right now that compared to the very intense, awesome hard rock version we just heard from the Black Mages, this one is like a middle ground where, to be perfectly honest, in my mind, it was the very corporate rock take on it. I think the vocals, they sound very like clean and articulate, like an opera singer would sing. But at the same time, it's like proper rock music that still uses the same melodies and everything. I'm curious what your two takes on this one is, in case you haven't heard it before.
Huh.
What? Tell me all your thoughts.
I'm not sure that I'm equipped with the vocabulary to do that at this particular moment in time. I'm not sure. Okay. Putting lyrics on some of these is always a hard sell for me in some ways. I don't mean for it to be. It just naturally, something happens in my body when suddenly there are words associated with a piece of music I've been listening to for 25, 30 years that weren't there before. And now I've got to decide whether or not these words mean anything to me in or out of the context of whatever. At the beginning, even though the video we're watching has the words right in front of us, I closed my eyes and I was listening, and I really couldn't decipher them. It was far enough away. It was echoey enough. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I felt like the longer it went on, the more I could decipher the words, the more I was like, I'm also not sure that I need this. I don't know. There were some parts of it felt a little hokey for some reason. If it wasn't in English, that might have helped. I think there's something, because some of the melodic choices, some of the big high notes, some of the, like you said, the voices are very impressive, but I don't know. It started to feel a little intro to an anime, gonna literally tell you the story during a cutscene that you're watching. You know, it's just like, I don't.
Ira, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've never heard this version before, and I agree. If I think of the human voice as only an instrument, I think it's fine. I like the arrangement; it's pretty standard to what it was before. When I would teach poetry to high schoolers, one of the reasons I avoid good and bad when it comes to art is I want to talk to students about their art and not tell them that it's bad. And so what I would say about that, we would talk about, is this a personal poem or is it a public poem? That is it just for you or is it for an audience? We would talk about, is it narrative or is it more image based? Is it, do you have a lot of concrete specific details or is it more sort of abstract and ethereal? And I feel like this one is, the words are all correct. None of those words are incorrect for what's going on, but they don't really paint a bigger picture. It's just kind of the evocation of the thoughts and feelings without a larger narrative or theme. It's fine. The lyrics are fine, but they don't mean a lot to me.
I think you both hit the nail on the head, because I am very similarly in the sense, because I also notice how I didn't mention anything about the lyrics when I was setting you guys up for this one. And I feel the exact same way, where it's like, it feels like the intro of an anime where the words are all just kind of like generically uplifting, but showing strife in some way, right? But at the same time, they're very vague and very just like, who is this for? And for listeners at home, the version this is called Forged in Crimson. It's Rubicant's theme from Final Fantasy XIV, and the lyrics, I'll just say a few of them here to give you a sense of like what we're listening to. It starts off, fears rise, blades fall, his void calls. So already it's like, okay, it's talking about some person, very strong, blades fall, he's killing people, something bad's happening, right? And then we go into some stuff that involves the elements, the four elements, which is strongly related to the crystals and the elements from Final Fantasy IV. Fires blaze, waters rage, gods above are deaf now to your cries, earth and scourge, gale winds surge, look within and seek your own salvation. Do you claim to have the strength to brave the flames of battle, conquest, death, annihilation? Your souls weep, sorrow steep, wherefore would you mourn the coming dawn? And it's like, it's just very generically like, this guy is bad, but we need to put the words fire, water, earth, and wind in there somewhere. Yeah. And then it just kind of becomes this big, haughty thing. Combine that with the very operatic, vocal dictation they have. Drew, you were just talking about how like you had your eyes closed to start and you couldn't really tell what the words were saying, but you could kind of tell like, oh, I hear like the melody. Opera is a very vowel first language, quote unquote, like speaking style, where you don't really hear, unless you're singing in German or one of those kind of languages, you don't really hear a lot of consonants. You're going to hear a lot of the and all the in between stuff in those very long words. It's clipped. It's very, very short, because if I was to try and sing like a word, like the word to, well, which part of the letters TO am I going to be able to sing for a long time?
Vowel, right.
Yeah, the vowel sound. So if I try to like draw out a consonant, bad things can happen. Phew. Like it just doesn't work, right? And so a lot of different styles in like that more operatic style, they avoid that stuff. Now, if you were to put on some Megadeth and you wanted to hear Dave Mustaine, sing something that started with the letter R, he will just hold that R as long as he can for that very gritty, visceral style. For opera, though, they're going to hit that R as quickly as they can and then turn it into like an ah sound, basically. And in here, because of that, we get these very formal sounds for what is a very, at least originally, a very gruesome theme for people that are here to rend your soul from your body, basically. And that just doesn't quite match tonally to what I want out of this kind of piece.
You went Megadeth for your example. My example of holding a consonant out was going to be from the Jungle Book. Trust.
It's been a hot minute since I watched the Jungle Book. I need to rewatch that one.
But yeah, even as you were saying it, I was thinking of, again, to Ira's question of why not this one when I'm so okay with all of the vocal tracks on that other album that we listened to that I'm blanking on right now. What's the name of that album?
Prey album?
Prey, that's right. And a lot of those are from the melodies that Uematsu wrote that were much more immediately or already romantic and pop kind of sounding. Whereas this melody, as we ran over it in great detail, it's full of staccato stuff. It's changing its mind every couple of measures. And I don't think it lends well to a bunch of words in it. That particular bit that you sung where it's falling down there, where I talked about it, my favorite part of the melody, that descending, the folly downy part, putting words into it just felt so unnatural.
Yeah, it feels, even if the words have good scansion, which, by the way, random music theory word for the day, scansion is like where the syllables are placed in the words. Does it actually flow well? Which this does have good scansion, but even then, it just feels like kind of oddly unnatural and forced in some ways, something like that. Yeah, the only other thing I'll say to wrap this all together that I didn't get to in the first part of the analysis for the song is that notice how there are those little parts where something from one of the earlier themes comes back. We hear the bup up bup up bup up bup up sort of thing come back. We hear the quote unquote Sephiroth harmony come back a few times. And in the sense of the game, now going back to actually Final Fantasy IV, what might that sort of represent? The sense of the small little bits of the four main melodies coming back later, wink wink nudge nudge.
Yeah, because they literally come back later.
Yeah, they literally come back.
Yeah.
I think it's a really clever way how Uematsu said, hey, I know that they're going to come back later in the game. So whether it was by pure coincidence, which it could have been, or it could have been him knowing it ahead of time, he said, I'm going to do something that makes each of the four melodies, even for just one measure, or even just like in a bass line somewhere, they are going to come back at least once before the loop restarts, as a way of showing, yep, you fight the Four Fiends at different points. And then I think it's when you actually go to the moon, isn't it? It's like when you're on the moon proper. Do you either remember?
Well, it's like right before the last big fight, I think. You got to fight them all again.
Yeah, we hear them come back just for a little bit longer before the song loops again, which is really cool.
I have one last thought here, which is that you talked about the first one being essentially two parts not quite connecting and then coming together at the end. And then I was trying to make this into an extemporaneous speech where you mention your 4 points and you bring up your 4 points again. But I liked what you said about them being the Four Fiends, and they don't really. I mean, they have a full thing here, but it is a fighting with each other. The various parts are interrupting each other and kind of talking over each other, and so both pieces could be stylized as tense conversations. But one is more gentle and is going to resolve in a way that is good for everybody, and the other one, well, you've got to kill him twice.
That is it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who has reached out to us. Feel free to let us know what we missed, got wrong, or should have mentioned, plus any questions you may have or any piece you would like to hear in the future, down in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to Everything is Final Fantasy on Patreon, YouTube, and whatever your favorite podcast app is, and of course do the same on social media. Got to do that for our friend Ryan Alaney and his Airship Overdrive project, where you can hear arrangements of some of your favorite video game music. And be sure to join us next time for a March or 6. If I was stuck on a little bit. Don't call him the best color man in the biz for nothing, folks.
Look, I don't always have a lot to say.
That is also fine.
Not very good for being a podcaster, but this is a hobby, so what are you going to do?
So also, okay.